I won't have a whole lot to go over today, but as you can see, I don't quite have the schedule filled out because when I left on Friday, I tried to take a picture of that with my laptop, but then when I opened it up, it would not open, so I just had to guess. But it has been posted on for the lesson plans. But but with this, bacteria and viruses are placed together in the same chapter. I've experienced it before with different authors that sometimes that's been split up. But in this case, when we talk about bacteria, is that just a misconception, or what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear or think bacteria? Well, it is microorganisms, right? Well, viruses are totally a different category. And I wouldn't expect you to know a lot about bacteria, but is it something that you think bacteria, dirty, disease-causing, little microorganisms like you had alluded to, or is there a place and a reason to have bacteria for us? So is all bacteria bad then? No, certainly not. Do you have bacteria living in you? Yes, you do. Do you have bacteria on you? Yes, you do. It's believed that for the most part, bacteria would never know if we were wiped from the surface of the earth. But should you take bacteria off this earth, we would be in dire trouble. I mean, and I think there's something to be said for that. Just on kind of, and we'll get to it in our readings, not today, but how many of you like various dairy products? Cottage cheese, yogurt, various types of different types of cheese, whether it's American, cheddar, any one of those. Without bacteria, some of that would not be possible. Okay? And then for once, maybe I'm expecting too much from sophomores, am I? So we got to think about it. All right. See, I'm actually doing a precursor for you too. Why would we cover the microphone? And I don't know, maybe sound still goes through. If you ever watch any type of shows that include the law, if you go talk to the judge, they cover the microphone. It's not for everybody's ears. Well, could be, yeah. But we just want to keep the ball rolling here. So on page 516, okay, when we're talking about the diversity of prokaryotes, okay, probably not the most interesting topic to talk about, but from the time that I took microbiology in college until now, who could have ever predicted about different things that you can discuss about microbes, even in your case, 30 years from now? I mean, I don't think that the Delta variant, the Omicron variant, I really don't think that that's really going to leave. Maybe that's something we're going to have to learn to live with. And I think there's something to be said for that. Although that's a virus rather than bacteria, which, how would you know, other than being discussed, that that's a virus rather than a bacteria? And I wouldn't expect you to know that, but some of you maybe every year choose to get this vaccination, the flu shot, because, of course, We call it the flu, which is short for influenza, which is caused by a virus. So when you get a vaccination, do you know this? There's no, I can't explain the exact science behind it, but why do people choose to get a vaccination? Right, so there's just a little bit in there to, let's say, that you could say that gets the ball rolling, and it gives your immune system a chance to know when something is knocking on the door that really does not belong there. And with that, that's why people choose to get the flu shot. I don't know if I've ever missed a year of getting the flu shot. And some people may say, I've gotten the flu shot before, but I got so sick from that. And no one's going to react the same to these vaccines. Excuse me. So sometimes, should one bad experience be the reason to not ever do that again? Well, maybe, but that's why we have that choice to make those decisions, whether it's the latest rounds of vaccines and boosters. Some people want them, and I think maybe you would agree, this is just an opinion, that you respect the decisions of people not to do that as well. I think here, are we doing pretty well in this pandemic? Are we doing pretty well? Yeah, I think that would be a general consensus. I think, unfortunately, maybe some people do have to stay home that may show symptoms of that. But in general, I think we're still doing all right. But anyway, page 516, the diversity of prokaryotes, because we're talking about bacteria there. All right, so under the blue. Many scientists think that the first microorganisms on Earth were microscopic unicellular organisms called prokaryotes, which I believe would certainly be true. Today, prokaryotes are the most numerous organisms on Earth. They are found everywhere from the depths of the ocean to the highest mountaintops. Some prokaryotes are the only organisms to survive in hostile environments, such as the water in hot sulfur springs or the Great Salt Lake. Now, why would that even be possible? Why can bacteria live in such hostile environments? Would you think? We haven't read far enough, and it may not discuss in this, but how or why is it possible for bacteria to do that? Because think of it this way, what happens if animals don't evolve? What will they do? They will die out. If bacteria are exposed to different types of treatments or different types of environments, if they don't evolve, what do? They're going to die out as well. So what we talk about that is what we refer to as a tolerance. Okay. Now there's different ways you can talk about that of a tolerance. And one of the things that I believe that makes the most sense, how many of you, if you have a headache, okay, does anyone here take Tylenol or acetaminophen or something to that effect? Say, oh, I've got a headache, I'm going to take a couple tablets, and typically half hour later, those symptoms may start to subside. Would you agree? So, now, again, this is just an opinion, but every time you get a headache, would it be a good idea to take acetaminophen?
No. Sure. Why not?
Well, maybe. That's certainly your choice, but is it possible that your body can build a tolerance up to acetaminophen, that one tablet did the job, now you're up to 2? So what do you suppose we're getting? One did it, now 2, now a few months down the road. I think if you decide to do that, I think your body can build up a tolerance to that too. Now, is it accurate? I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that's just an opinion. And some people, maybe they don't get these types of symptoms very often, so you take your acetaminophen, it's gone. It happens again, then it's gone. And then maybe you don't have that problem again for a long time. But that's what we mean by a tolerance, and that's how these bacteria can survive in such harsh environments. Sometimes you could say the hospital is the worst place to be at times to get a bacterial infection. And for those of you who may have heard of this, it's called a post-op infection, which means post-operation, okay? Means that occurred after the operation. That's a post-op infection. It's usually caused by a strain called the Staphylococcus strain. And that has also built up a tolerance that sometimes refer to them as superbugs. Okay, anyway, moving on. All prokaryotes were once classified into one group kingdom, the Monera, based on their lack of a nucleus membrane-bound organisms. However, modern research has shown that great differences exist among prokaryotes. They are now divided into two domains, domain bacteria and domain archaebacteria. Sometimes called eubacteria. Not getting enough light to shine onto here. All prokaryotic organisms that belong to the domain bacteria. Bacteria live in every environment on Earth and are important in the human body. Industry and food production. We already alluded to some of that. Okay. Your body actually has E. coli in its intestines, which actually helps synthesize vitamin K for us. And I wouldn't be disappointed, but I would be surprised. Does anyone know what vitamin K actually does? You would think so because of the letter K, but no, that's not what we're looking for. Vitamin K is what actually helps your blood clot. Okay, so that's why sometimes vitamin K would be administered to, let's say you have your pet dog on the farm, around the foundations of maybe different types of buildings, you may throw rat poison around there. Okay? What rat poison does is as that organism takes in that bacteria, it really thins their blood. And it thins it so much that will just actually leaking or leaching through different types of body tissues. I know that because I've seen that happen to our dog before. You can certainly tell you might be able to tell when your dog isn't feeling very well. And with this, I just kept noticing he kept licking his nose and blood just kept coming out of there. And there's no trauma to the dog. So I thought, oh, is it possible he ingested some poison? And did. So the veterinarian gave him a high dose of vitamin K and then had to give him another dose, I don't know, a few days down the road. Eventually snapped out of that because that's just one of the functions that vitamin K does for us, and we don't even think about it. And we don't have to think about it. Okay? Archaea have been found to have some similarities with eukaryotic cells, such as cytoplasm, proteins, and histones, shown as representatives in these two diagrams. Okay, so where does this actually start? Diversity of, okay. Okay, so we talked about the different types of diversity of prokaryotes. Now we want to go to page 518, and we'll just read about the chromosomes of these. So, prokaryotic structure, page 518. Prokaryotes are microscopic unicellular organisms. They have some characteristics of all cells, such as DNA and ribosomes, but they lack a nuclear membrane and other membrane-bound organelles, such as mitochondria and chloroplasts. Although a prokaryotic cell is very small and doesn't have membrane-bound organelles, it has all it needs to carry out life functions, as you read about the structure of prokaryotes. Chromosomes. What do we know about chromosomes from last semester? Something specifically found in or on the chromosomes? Someone might have said it. Say that again? Yeah, the DNA is actually found on the chromosomes. It's what makes the different types of bacteria and people, you could say, unique. Okay? So chromosomes. The chromosomes in prokaryotes are arranged differently from chromosomes found in eukaryotic cells. Their genes are found on a large circular chromosome in the area of the cell called the nucleoid. Many prokaryotes also have at least one smaller piece of DNA called a plasmid, which also has a circular arrangement. And I do believe those are part of your vocab terms. Yes, bacteria, then nucleoid. We haven't gone on to the capsule yet. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So I really don't know. It's probably too early to tell whether this is something you think you may or may not enjoy. We incorporate kind of like what we did last chapter, a segment of information on what we could say a pandemic actually is. Probably the largest one was in medieval times. It didn't even occur on this continent because you could say technically it was inhabited, but whether you believe who discovered it, that's besides the point. Whether it was the Vikings or Mr. Columbus who got lost and just happened to land on Central America or Florida, wherever it was he hit land. But in medieval times, around the mid-1300s, maybe that's something that you have discussed in history class. Okay, black or bubonic plague. And when we're talking about that, as far as a percentage, okay, does anyone want to take a guess on the death toll or the percentage of the known world at that time, which really just centered around Europe more than anything else? Can anyone take a guess, percentage-wise? No, way too high. Yes. A little higher than 15. I want to say it's around 20 to maybe 35%. I believe they talk about, maybe with some historians, maybe up to 50%. Part of the problem with that is that at that time frame, that plague would, unfortunately, people would succumb to that so quickly that maybe that bacteria just could not spread efficiently enough. So therefore, it maybe depends upon what type of source you may believe in that case. So what I mean about 20 or 30 years from now, you may be able to describe that I remember when we talk about society maybe being locked down. I guess I don't know how severe you really think what a lockdown is, but I do believe, I don't know if it's in this state or if it was a nationwide trend, that if you were a new business that tried to get started or get up and running, maybe it was a statistic that maybe 40% of them that tried to start out in and around 2019 had to shut their doors and had to do it for good. And that's really, really unfortunate. So hopefully we can take things and learn from the past. Although one of the things we got to remember, that was a bacterial plague. This is a viral one. So in that case, it is just a little bit different. So in that case, we will start talking about different types of prokaryotic structures past the chromosomes tomorrow. So we'll catch up to you next time.